Pixel Therapy is a member of the But Why Though podcast network.
Go to butwhythoughpodcast.com for an inclusive geek community offering pop culture news, reviews, and podcasts.
I know a lot of people, especially people who aspire to be a game developer, they get hooked into, or they just get tangled into the sort of like web of gatekeeping. Like, what does it mean to be a game developer? What kind of skills it takes to be a game maker? And I want to tell that person to, like, whatever's on the table, just throw everything on the floor and like just toss it onto the floor. Even if you make a 10-second game in Twine, you're a game maker.
Welcome to Pixel Therapy, the video game podcast where we look at the games we play through the lens of the player, where what you play is just as important as how you play it, and where emotional intelligence is a critical stat. Every other week, we bring on a guest who may or may not consider themselves a gamer to discuss the games that have made them and changed them, and all the feelings they have about our favorite pastime. I'm your co-host, Jamie, pronouns she, her.
And I'm your co-host, Spencer, pronouns they, them.
And this is Pixel Therapy. We are going to start, as we always do, with our Patreon shout-outs. This is our special thank you to everyone who subscribed, and I've got a new list for you folks today.
Oh my
God. Everyone who subscribed at our Patreon name in the credits tier for the month of March. So today we'd like to say a very big thank you to Val, Genevieve, Lindsay, Grace, Jackie, Ben, Pimhatai, and Adiyinka. Thank you all so very, very much for your support. Remember, if you want to get your name in the credits, you can hop on over to patreon.com/pixeltherapypod, where you can subscribe for as little as just $2 a month. And you'll get access to our monthly bonus series called Co-op Mode. Our March episode was Spencer and I talking about Horizon Forbidden West, if you can believe it. And we were diving deep on all the mechanics and combat tips and tricks. So if that sounds like something that interests you, head on over to patreon.com/pixeltherapypod and check us out. Just check it out. Just
look at it. Give it a peek.
Just give it a look. See if you're interested. A wink and a nod. Yeah. If you're a fan of what we do here on Pixel Therapy, and I hope that you are, please consider sharing us with your friends and family, rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, or you can even write into the show by emailing us at pixeltherapypod@gmail.com. We'd really love to hear from you. Any of you. Even just one of you.
The inbox, there's been a tumbleweed blowing through
it. All right, folks, it's time to get cozy. Pull up an armchair. Feel free to lie down on the couch, and let's talk about our feelings. Spencer, how are you doing today?
I'm well, Jamie.
You're well. Okay. That's nice.
I'm struggling in the joint struggle that all of us tarnished are in.
Oh, ye tarnished.
Although I am but a maidenless wretch, I too may yet claw my way out of the lands between.
Oh my gosh, that was beautiful. For anyone who's not following along, Spencer is referring to the hit game, best game of all time, ? Elden Ring?
What?
I mean, I don't know. Some people are saying it. I'm not saying I'm saying it. I'm just saying some people are. Some people are saying it.
I've heard
the game that got me 25 points or something, 35 points on our Critics League.
Damn.
Yeah, our Fantasy Critics League.
It's truly getting perfect scores across the board.
It's getting very good scores. Good scores.
Well, let me back up a second.
Yeah, let's back up. Let's rewind.
Yeah.
Rewind the tape.
Good. I finished Horizon Forbidden West.
Yes.
And right before,
we both did.
Yes, we did. We both did.
We both finished it. Well, I had finished it before last time. Yeah, I guess I didn't need to say that.
I was
slow. Yeah. Oh my gosh. How dare you take so long to play an 80+ hour video game, Spencer? Get with it.
Yeah.
You had to quit your job to have time to play Horizon Forbidden West.
I needed a sabbatical from work just to focus on my real job, which is playing video games.
Amen.
But I mean, just what a beautiful journey. And just, I'd been waiting a long time, like we both were. We'd been waiting a long time for Horizon. So it was a big release to be able to finally play it. And you right before we started recording, Jamie put it into words for me of what was it? Post big game
ennui.
Yeah.
or malaise, depending on how you want to
post game malaise. Yeah. And there's a plethora of games out right now.
So many.
There's
a bounty.
Blue. There's Weird West. There's Tunic. There's like a bunch of things I want to play. Oh yeah, Norco, which I need to get to. I just sitting down on my computer is like the last thing I want to do right now.
I know.
With this weather and just in general, I'm just like,
yeah, Norco's only on PC right now, so it's a
toughie.
I'm trying to play it, but it's just like when I can grab myself in the right mood to stay at the computer.
Yeah, and like you have to kind of, I don't know. I feel like with Inscription, it just sucked me in. So the computer fell away, and it was just me and the screen. So I need to get in that headspace again, where I just let myself immerse and try not to think too much about the fact that I'm sitting at my desk. I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna have to become one of those people who has a work desk and a gaming desk because I
don't know. I'm really I'm very seriously trying to figure this out for myself because there's so many games that only come to PC, and it's like I could wait. A lot of the games that bubble up that are really, I don't know. A lot of games bubble up and they eventually come to other platforms, but I don't know. I'm looking at kind of the list of games that I've put together another one of those ridiculous hype spreadsheets to track all of the games that I want to play this year, or that I am expecting to come out that I'm interested in. And so many of them are going to at least initially be PC releases. And it's just how do I make this an experience that I actually want to have? I do know a big part of it for me is being able to lean back. It's just makes a big difference. Physically lean back. Yeah. When you're sitting at a desk, I tend to be kind of hunched over it or leaning forward, leaning in. It's more active as opposed to relaxing and leaning back. So I was kind of trying to figure out, can I get an ottoman and put it under my desk so I can put my feet up? I know they make different gaming lap things that will hold your keyboard and your mouse. So I don't know. I'm kind of trying to decide if I want to try to invest to make it something, but I feel like I could invest and still not actually enjoy doing it. So what I really want is the Steam Deck to come out, because that kind of seems like the perfect, for folks who don't know, the Steam Deck is almost like a Nintendo Switch, but for PC games. It's being released by Valve's Steam company. It's slowly rolling out this year, right? They took pre-orders and then it's just on this really extended release schedule, but it kind of seems like a nice alternative. I don't want to invest in a gaming laptop, but this is a gaming handheld device that will run a large library of PC games. And I don't know, I'm keeping an eye on it. I think it could be interesting if that could turn into a PC indie machine for me to use in the living room comfortably. That might be the solution to all my problems.
Yeah. And I have a gaming PC and I'm still kind of oh man, I'd love nothing more than to just kick back and that sounds great. Recline with my little games. So I finished Horizon and nothing was really grabbing me. I think too, I get in this space where I want to just continue feeling that, what is it? It's this feeling of freedom and endless possibility, and I'm sinking into something completely unknown. And I just haven't really been getting that from other games that are out right now. And then slowly around me, people that I love and respected started falling ill with an illness called more Elden Ring. And even Jamie, who
I've succumbed.
We were talking on Slack, and I was Elden Ring's out, and we would just kind of be don't know if it's for me, don't think it's gonna be the type of thing I want to play, but so interesting reading the reviews coming in, seeing the gameplay. And then one day Jamie was I've fallen prey to the Siren song, and I knew what that meant.
Yep. It got me.
So tell us how it got you.
Okay, I'm gonna try. So just in case anyone is at all confused, I think we've mentioned Elden Ring a few times on the show, and it's really blowing up in terms of popular, if you are in a video game loop at all, you've probably heard of Elden Ring. But just to say it, Elden Ring came out February 25th of this year, our Lord 2022. It's out on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. It's developed by From Software, published by Bandai Namco. And From Software is known for creating challenging action role-playing games that are notoriously kind of obtuse, with not super straight and clear narratives, challenging, some would say punishing combat, and often dark, gritty, and sometimes even gruesome or gross worlds and creatures. And so Elden Ring specifically is a fantasy game that they've created, set in kind of a dark fantasy world. And the game was directed by Miyazaki, who's their primary game director there at FromSoft, and made in collaboration with fantasy novelist George R.R. Martin, who provided material for the game's setting.
So, like, what material? Because there's, like, no dialogue. It's a mostly silent game. So I'm like, was the fingers you?
George R.R. Martin is responsible for the two fingers. I assume they haven't been super specific, I don't think. And if they have, then I haven't seen it. But my assumption is that he probably like worked on some of the guiding like lore documents with Miyazaki and like creating the actual like world and the basic lore. But I don't think George R.R. Martin was like doing line by line writing for this game. It was probably more of like a, what is the world that we're building? Here's the world and the way it operates, and weighing in on that in that regard. Yeah, that's my assumption.
It's basically like a scarier and more body horror filled Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. I think you can definitely draw parallels to Lord of the Rings, especially with the ring being a component in it. I wouldn't say that I'm super clear on what's happening at the point that I'm at in the game, and I think that's probably a common experience with this game and with From Software games in general. There are games where you might meet NPC characters who will tell you things, but everyone kind of speaks in a little bit of code because they're talking very much in a space of as though you already understand the world and how it operates. So characters will talk to you like you're already deeply familiar with everything that's going on. And then a lot of lore is actually gleaned through things like item descriptions, through just finding messages and passageways and stuff in the world. There's a lot of discoverability that exists, and people actually like have whole ass YouTube channels and stuff just dedicated to parsing out the little bits and pieces of lore that they can find throughout these games and trying to explain them and piece them all together to create a cohesive vision of what's actually happening. So as I said, they're known for being super obscure, and I think Elden Ring falls into that. The general premise, as I understand it, is that in this fantasy land called the Lands Between, there was some sort of a greater power, god / entity that everyone follows, and bestowed power upon the queen of the lands in the form of an Elden Ring. And the Elden Ring was shattered into a bunch of pieces. The queen has gone missing. Queen Marika, I believe, if I'm understanding this correctly. The Elden Ring has been shattered, and her offspring, family, cousins, or just close friends, a series of demigods across the land have each captured a shard of the Elden Ring.
Oh, is that what's happening?
Yeah. So when the Elden Ring got shattered, basically a bunch of power-hungry folks grabbed a piece, and they're kind of hoarding it. But the shard of the Elden Ring and the power that came with it has also corrupted them. And so a set of folks called the Tarnished have basically been risen from the dead, and you are one of these Tarnished, with the express purpose of following the God's will. I don't know that they call it, there's like these trees, these beautiful trees. There's a lot of talk to some sort of a religion, but I'm still not quite sure I understand like who the deity is that everyone's following. But their God has apparently called upon these Tarnished to rise from the dead and serve the god's will by trying to collect the shards of the Elden Ring and put it back together. And so you are one of these people, lowly, nameless, maidenless, tarnished, who has been recalled.
To become the Elden Lord!
Yes, exactly. So the game kind of, it gives you like this brief, 2-minute summary of this. It's all very epic feeling. There's it's a cutscene, and there's just this guy like hammering on an anvil, and this like dark voice is telling you this tale. And then you just pop up and you pick a class. It's a very traditional role-playing game in that, there's like 10 or so different classes that you can pick from that all kind of start with a slightly different distribution of their attribute points. And you pick your class, you go out into the world, you can miss the tutorial. That's been a whole thing because the game's really just like, here you go ahead. And you're like in this cave and you're working your way up out of the cave, and you get to a point where there's some very clearly lit stairs that look like where you should go. And to the right, there's a ghostly man sitting by a hole. And what a lot of players don't realize is that you need to go down the hole to get the game's tutorial.
Yeah.
But I already knew about that, so I didn't miss the tutorial. I went down the hole and did the tutorial, which is pretty simple and straightforward. Just kind of tells you what buttons to press to throw your sword around, or if you are a spellcaster, tells you how to cast spells. And then the game just puts you out into the open world, and you've got an enormous map to explore. And most of the things in the world are out to kill you, and they will hit you very hard and very fast.
Yeah.
Is that a good setup?
Yeah. Yeah. It's very minimal in terms of screen UI. Like, you're truly just dropped into this world, and it's basically like, okay, good luck. One of my favorite things about the game is there's this multiplayer aspect where if you have online mode turned on, you can see other players from time to time in the form of these, like a ghostly apparition of another character, and you'll see them like maybe running around in the same area as you or fighting. And so it kind of feels like, oh, like we're all in this together. Like there's kind of this feeling of community there, because it is a very bleak and desolate, dying world. And so that's tough for me because I like to feel, I like to feel good when I'm playing games sometimes. And so the world can feel very lonely and quiet. And so I really like this aspect of being able to see traces of other people. And then there's this feature where players can leave notes on the ground for each other, using a word, like a preset dictionary of words that you can put together that the game provides you. So sometimes it's kind of like broken sounding statements. But other times, like when I was first starting the game, and so I should say it took a lot to build myself up to download this game. I spent several weeks
what finally convinced you? Because and we're going to dig more into like what I'm enjoying about the game here in a minute. I know you kind of like tossed that to me and I ignored it and instead talked about what the game is.
There's some great context setting though.
but yeah, so, I started the game a few weeks because I finished Horizon before you. So I started the game pretty much right after finishing Horizon. Actually, before I popped the platinum in Horizon, I ended up downloading the game. And have been, kind of talking to you a little bit about my experiences as I went. And all along, it sounded like you were just like, that doesn't sound like it's for me. That doesn't sound like it's for me. That doesn't sound like it's for me. And then randomly yesterday, you were like, yeah, so I downloaded Elden Ring.
Yeah.
So yeah, what finally tipped the scales for you? Is it just FOMO at this point?
It's a little bit of FOMO. Like I listened to a couple of gaming podcasts, like The Besties and Waypoint, and like I also started listening to Kind of Funny Games Daily, and it was like everywhere I turned, they're all talking about Elden Ring.
Yeah.
And you were talking about it, it started to a bit, and I was like, wow, I mean, if Jamie is having a good time, like maybe there's something here. I also just like, a lot of folks have compared it to Skyrim, an Elder Scrolls game. Is that Bethesda? And Skyrim, it's like 12 years old now at this point.
Yeah,
but really, when it came out, it really just the openness of the game, the fact that you could interact with basically anything, the way it didn't at all ask you to stick to a main quest and let the whole world open for you to explore and do whatever you wanted in this world. Just really set the tone for like, I think a lot of open world games that came after. And I personally played over 300 hours of Skyrim. I loved that game. And certainly from seeing gameplay videos and reading about the game, I could even see before I played it, the sort of parallels to Skyrim and especially the feeling of just boundless possibility. So that intrigued me because I did feel an empty space where an open world game should have been, where I was like, I just really want to feel that freedom again. And I started I started having dreams where I would be like riding the horse and exploring. And I was kind of like, oh, like maybe I can just try it out, especially if I'm going to talk about it. If I'm going to say, like, I feel like this is an amazing time to start playing a From Software, like a Souls game. It's just like, she's the moment right now. And, like everyone is talking about it. So many new players are coming into the mix and it's pretty easy right now to just start engaging with the fandom. Like it's just everywhere. And so I just thought maybe I could take advantage of that energy and just try my best, give it the old college try. And one of the early, like, again, I'm like shaking. My hands are already sweating and it's just the opening scene of the game where I'm waking up in a dark, dripping dungeon. And then I look and there are these glowing notes on the ground, messages from other players. And it's saying things like, good luck out there, try your best, like, welcome to Elden Ring, you're going to have so much fun. Just like, keep pushing. And I don't know, there's something about that I'm like, okay, I'm not the only one who's like, who's scared and has no experience with this. And for all of the, there's toxic folks in every fandom. And it's certainly true that, a lot of the discourse in the Souls franchise is like, this is for real gamers. You've got to get good. And that's the game, is that if you can't take that, if you don't want to be punished relentlessly, then that's a personal failing. It's like, there's not really room for kind of like a diversity of experience in terms of how people approach the game in some areas of the fandom. But there's also a ton of people who are like taking time to leave notes along this beginner path, just saying like, oh my gosh, I'm another gamer and I'm so happy you're here, which is like really cool to see. So that kind of hardened my resolve early on. That said, I still haven't decided how I feel about it. And so I'll pause there because I want to get back to you and have you finish telling us about what has hooked you. And maybe I can talk about how I've been doing.
Okay. So I think I resonate with so much of what you're saying about kind of I had so much resistance to even picking up this game. This is not the first From Software game that I've tried. I've played very, very, very little Bloodborne, to the point where I would say that I've played essentially no Bloodborne, a few hours, which is really nothing in these types of games. Was intrigued, but didn't it just wasn't right for me at that moment. And so I moved on to something else. And I had gotten that free through PlayStation Plus. So it wasn't like I bought that. The other From Software game that I've tried is Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice, which came out a few years ago. I want to say 2019, maybe. And that one, there was a lot of discourse happening around Sekiro about how at the time that was the most approachable of the FromSoft games, and it was shaking up the mechanics in interesting ways. And there was a lot of recommendation that folks who maybe hadn't tried a FromSoft game before give it a shot. And I did give it a shot, and I liked it quite a bit and put about 20 to 30 hours into it before I think something else came out and I just dropped off. And unfortunately, these aren't the kind of games that you can really put down and come back to super easily. Or at least I didn't feel like I could do that with Sekiro. Sekiro in particular, the combat is really based around parrying. You have to kind of parry attacks, and then you can get a big hit in after. And I didn't think that, after I stepped away from the combat for a couple months, trying to come back in the mid game was just not going to work out. But I mostly had a good time with the experience. And I was like, okay, I can see the appeal, but also it was very stressful playing Sekiro for me. So I was like, I see the appeal, but I still don't know if these games are really for me necessarily. So then Elden Ring came out, and, everyone was so hyped for Elden Ring before it came out. And then the reviews started hitting, and especially with the proximity to Horizon, I was suddenly seeing another situation that really reminded me of the way Horizon and Breath of the Wild came out within a few weeks of each other back in 2017 when the first Horizon game came out. And I just immediately got kind of salty. It was like, okay, I love Horizon, and I hate that it's once again getting overshadowed by a game that people are saying is one of the greatest games of all time, which is what people said about Breath of the Wild too. Like, here's Horizon, which is like a really solid open world game, but I don't think anyone would say this is one of the greatest games of all time. Just saying, like, this is a really great game, like a really great open world game. Maybe it's not the game of a generation, but like a great time. And then both times, like within a few weeks of its release, it's like, here you go. One of the greatest games ever made in the history of gaming. Just bloop, just here you go. That's just going to come out. So I was initially like really kind of salty. I was just like, but really, this is happening again. And I think I had, and I don't think this is my fault for having this perception, because I think in particular, Twitter discourse really forwards this narrative of these games are impossibly hard and you've got to get good if you want to play these games. And if you don't want to get good, even people like kind of being like, oh, I understand that these games aren't for everyone. Not everyone wants to work this hard to achieve something. And like just making it sound like you're some sort of like piece of shit, lazy, lesser person, lesser gamer for not enjoying these games or not getting it. There was so much, so many reviews giving this game 10 out of 10, saying like it couldn't possibly be better, best thing of all time. And yet at the same time, hearing lots of people say like, hey, here's kind of like these accessibility issues that this game doesn't live up to. Here's all the ways that like, 50% of players are missing the tutorial. But, people throwing out things that seem like real critiques for game design. That's like, yeah, I think it's a problem if 50% of your players are missing your tutorial, right? And this whole discourse happening around it of like, well, people just don't understand these games, and the game told you to go down the hole, and why didn't you listen? And it's like, well, because I've never played one of these games before, and there's a creepy ghost man saying go down the hole to like relive old war memories or some shit like that. How am I supposed to fucking know that's what that means, right? Like, so it just, the whole conversation around it was really a turnoff for me. And I was just finding myself really fucking irritated by it, because there's like one group of folks that just want to scream that the game is perfect and should not change at all, and they won't hear a bad word about it. And anybody who has a critique of the game is just like a lazy, bad gamer who doesn't understand, and they should just shut up because games shouldn't be for everybody. And these folks who really want to gatekeep and make From Software games this exclusive experience that only they're allowed to have because they're some sort of gamer elite. That person exists. But what I've started to realize since allowing myself to play and enjoy Elden Ring is that there's a whole other contingent of folks playing these games and enjoying these games who are not going on Twitter and screaming about it, who understand that these games can be challenging, and that part of the fun of the games is figuring out how to get through them in whatever way that works for you, and that it's all equal. That it doesn't matter if you cheesed a fight by shooting the person with arrows through a doorway while they were stuck on a chair or something in the room, like that you still won the fight, and that's all valid. And as I started to understand that there was this group of folks who were more interested in kind of encouraging each other through the game, and then hearing the comparisons to Skyrim, I was like, I don't know. I entered the game with very low expectations. I think similar to you, I was listening to the conversations that they were having on Waypoint Radio. I was listening to the conversations they were having on Kind of Funny. And I was hearing this comparison to Skyrim, which is a game that I absolutely loved. I played through the entire game twice, doing pretty much everything you could possibly do in the game. So probably at least 300 hours total between those two playthroughs as well. And I was just like, okay, I just want to try it out. Like, if it doesn't click, then I'll put it down, But people are saying this is one of the greatest games of our generation, and I feel like I owe it to just try it and not let this discourse completely turn me off and just try the game and see for myself. But I also knew going in that the game was going to be obscure. And I had heard folks saying like, hey, if you want to use guides, just use guides. Like just look shit up and read about it. And so I did. I downloaded the game, and then I spent the first night that I installed the game, like I spent 3 hours just reading shit about the game. I read stuff on like, what are the items that you want to get right at the beginning of the game? I read like, where should you go right at the beginning of the game? I read all about the different classes and what's a good build and what's a powerful build. And then thought about like how I wanted to personally play the game. In fantasy games, I don't really like using magic, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but I just don't like, I prefer to be kind of like a tough knight person. And so I read about how to make a build that would align with that and that would feel powerful and that would feel fun to play. And then I got into the game, and I'm like 40 hours in now. I'm still looking up guides occasionally, but I've much more gotten to a place now where I'm kind of just free roaming, following what I believe the main path of the game is when I can, and sometimes just fucking off to just explore and try to find everything there is in an area. I'm having a lot of fucking fun with it.
What's different about the combat in this game versus a game like Hades, where dying over and over again for you at first was really frustrating and made you put down the game?
Well, for one thing, I don't often feel like I'm dying over and over again in this game. If I get myself into an area where that is what's happening, I will just leave that area and go do something else for a while. Wait until I've leveled up a few times, or I've gotten a new toolkit or a new weapon or a new, they have these things called Ashes of War, which are like special abilities that you can attach to your weapon. I'll wait till I get something that changes the status quo before I come back. That's been a strategy I've employed multiple times now, especially when it comes to kind of following what's quote unquote like the main narrative of the game. That's where I seem to run up against the most, where I seem to get myself into situations where it's suddenly like, oh no, like if I swing my sword and at an enemy and just a tiny sliver of their health comes off, that's a sign to me that I shouldn't, like, I'm not ready for this yet. Or if they swing their sword at me and I die in one hit, or I almost die in one hit, I shouldn't be here yet. And that's fine. I can just go somewhere else. And this game lets you do that very easily. You know, with Hades, you're really on a set path. What I don't like in games is feeling like I'm repeating the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
And I think for the most part, I won't say that this has not happened at all, but for the most part in Elden Ring, I have not felt like I'm being put in situations where I just have to continually beat my head against the same wall in the same way over and over again. The one exception kind of being like, you know, the big boss fights, that's the big boss fight. If you want to beat the big boss, you got to beat the big boss. There's only a handful, though, of boss fights that are actually integral to the quote unquote story of Elden Ring. So you can kind of like decide if you want to do a boss fight or not. But if you are going to try to do a boss fight, that is the one time where it's like you kind of have to learn the boss, and you're probably those are the times where I'm dying the most, right?
Yeah.
Is with a boss fight. But so far in Elden Ring, they've been really generous about checkpointing with that. Like most of the time, the path to the boss has there's things called sites of graces. Sites of grace.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the right way to say it. Plural.
Pieces of the Erd tree that are glowing in the world, and
exactly
places where light converges.
And they usually will have kind of a beam coming out of them that will kind of direct you towards the next point of interest, right? They kind of look like a little campfire, but it just creates a checkpoint, a save point that you'll respawn from if you die. And there's also these things that are called Stakes of America.
Oh, the statues. Yeah.
Statues. Yeah, they're little statues that exist before big fights. Well, that's often where they're placed, is right before a big fight. And you can also choose to respawn from those if you'd like. And a lot of times those might be closer to the fight location than the last site of grace that you visited. So you when you die from a big fight like that, you often get a choice of which one you want to respawn from. So most of the time when I'm in a boss fight, I'm able to respawn at a point that I can pretty quickly get back into the fight. And that is what helps prevent the frustration for me. I don't necessarily mind dying in a game. What I don't like is feeling like I'm losing a lot of progress, right? And I understand, especially the way the boss fights in this game is set up. Like, it's pretty rare that you're going to go into a boss fight and just beat the boss on the first time. Like, that's probably not going to happen. You're going to need a few times to kind of learn the boss's moveset, figure out a strategy for approaching them, and then you'll probably finally take them down. So I'm not going into these fights expecting to beat them the first time. But if I died and then had to run through an entire dungeon to get back to them, that would be super frustrating. But that's just hasn't been the case so far. I don't know if that's going to get worse as the game goes on, but so far the game has been super generous in that checkpointing and respawning options. And so I do feel like I can focus on mastering the part that I want to get good at. What always frustrated me about Hades was that I felt like I would go through the shit that I'm already good at for a really long time to get to the thing that I'm bad at, to then immediately die, not learn anything, and have to go do it all again. And that's where I get really frustrated. So it doesn't feel like a roguelite, which is what tends to chafe for me a lot more.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to say this with absolutely no judgment on how you do things, because it might sound that way.
Okay.
My problem is that I think of myself as a very intuitive gamer. I don't like my immersion to be broken, and I want to feel like I'm escaping my body and living in this world. And so a side effect of that is that I don't like strategy guides. It makes me feel like I'm not fully, two things. One, that makes me feel like I'm not able to fully submerge in the world because I keep coming back out to reference an external text. And then secondly, it creates this feeling in me like I'm playing someone else's version of the game and I'm not doing an experience that would be true to me and the type of person I am. And I know that's starting to get into, this is how I connect emotionally very deeply with games. And so I want to have a unique and life-changing experience each time. And so I get in my head about like, well, so-and-so wrote this guide. That's how they want to play it. But like, is this me or am I just going through the motions? And so through that, I'm sure you can tell, I get very up in my head about what does it mean if I'm consulting a guide. And so early on with Elden Ring, it's like I see my glorious notes, I make my adorable character, I feel it, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling happy, I'm feeling hopeful. I turn left and I immediately get smashed by this giant creature guy troll who's like chilling around a corner in one of the first areas of the game. And I think too, I'm someone who, when I encounter something in a game, I feel like, okay, I've got to get through this in order to continue. This is what the game is putting in front of me, which means that I have to get good enough to fight this creature here, or else anything stronger is gonna decimate me. Like, this is the only way. And I will say that stood in my way a lot my first 10 hours of playing Elden Ring, because the world it doesn't progressively get harder. It's just like, it's like the real world, I guess, where sometimes there's something crazy around the corner and you just don't know until you get there. Like there's no building up to a really difficult battle. It's like you just might encounter it, and if you keep moving, you might not. And so something that Jamie said to me the other day, that you said, I'm talking to you right now, something that you said to me the other day was, this game encourages you to run if you're not ready for a fight. And the concept of running inherently to me feels like failure. It was hard for me to kind of wrap my head around, oh, you should run. And it's like a good thing. Like you're actually doing what the game is asking. And an example of that is, so somewhat early on in the game, you meet a person named Melina, I think her name is, the maiden who helps you. So she's someone who basically is rooting you on and partners with you and allows you to level up, and she gives you helpful advice, things like that. And one of the things she gives you is a horse named Torrent, who is a really cool horse with horns.
A spectral steed.
Spectral steed, yeah. He can double jump, which I love.
Yes. And like, have you found one of the big wind tunnel things that you can can you jump up? So there's these things around the world that are, they almost look like, it looks like kind of like a weird wind tunnel. But if you go into it with Torrent and you hit jump, he will basically like go thousands of feet into the air.
My God.
And like land safely on like a cliff top.
Yay! I love that. I love that he
cool.
doesn't die like when you jump from high distances.
It depends on how high, but most of the time, yeah. he can and he will. But, but he can go pretty far. He can fall pretty far without taking damage.
Yeah, but he was like an instant comfort to me. Mm-hmm. But something that I read and then later internalized was like, so she gives you this horse. She's like right before this giant gate. She's like, here's this spectral steed. You can summon him and he goes really fast and he jumps and he's awesome. And right after that, if you continue through the gate, all of a sudden, all these soldiers start shooting arrows at you and a giant troll smashes through the gate and starts attacking you. At this point, this is like, I don't know, 30 minutes into the game. So like most people are probably still at or around an entry level. And I immediately was killed and I did it like 3 more times. And I was just like, this is the only way forward. I suck. I can't, these enemies are all too strong. There's something wrong with me. I'm not playing this game right. I'm not cut out for this. And then I read this piece where someone was talking about how there's a reason that Melina gives you that horse right before that gate. She gives you the horse because the game is hinting to you that you should get on the horse immediately and just speed through the tunnel, avoiding the archers, running right past the troll, and then they're gone. They're behind you and you're in the rest of the world. And when I did that, I was like, oh, maybe this game isn't just trying to punish me. Maybe it also is saying, like you said, Jamie, like, hey, if you're not ready for a challenge, it's okay. Like, you should play this game in the way that makes sense for you. And there might be enemies that are too strong. And so you just come back later. So embracing the art of running away completely transformed my experience with the game. I picked it up again last night after shaking and crying for 2 days after my first experience playing it. I'm just kidding, but not really. And I tried to approach it from that headspace of like, if I run, I run. This, like, I have to keep reminding myself there's no like items to make sure you collect or areas that you have to make sure that you hit in order to unlock some other quest line, or like it's just an open world for you to explore. And also there are things that want to kill you and are scary, but the game gives you the space and time to meet those challenges when you're ready. So I think I'm starting to appreciate it. But it's still nerve-wracking for me, even though I'm running around on my horse and I'm able to blow past certain things. Like, I'm still having this feeling of like, okay, you're going to have to fight someone eventually if you want to level up. So it's slow going, but I think I'm growing. I think I'm starting to get it. What do you think makes this one of the greatest games of all time? I think that's still the place where I'm like, okay, I understand the openness. I understand that there's like this kind of combat system is rewarding for some people. Like, what made it immediately like 10 out of 10 greatest game of all time? Like what do you think that is? Like, why do you think it's
I'm not sure I'm the best person to ask, because I don't necessarily know if I agree with that. But I think what is so alluring about the game is something that you're kind of touching. It defies almost all of the tenets of game design and development that I think a lot of AAA games have cultivated and honed and possibly even perfected over the last, I don't know, however long we've been doing open world games. It takes so much of what we have decided is good game design and kind of very, it just thumbs its nose at it and says, no, we're going to do something different. And I think the fact that they've done that and that it can still be super enjoyable to play is just like endlessly fascinating. I wouldn't want every game to be this. And if every game was, I don't think this would be anywhere near as special or as, I don't know if it would be as lauded. Like if every game was designed this way, I don't know that Elden Ring would stand out. But I think what FromSoft does is so unique and so against the grain of what we've decided is good modern game development that I think, I don't know. I think it's not necessarily, like, I still don't know if it's necessarily good game design. It's certainly very designed. It's very intentional design. I don't know if I can qualify it necessarily because I do think it's something that's really, and again, and even saying this, I don't know if this is something that we should be deciding is how we determine if a game is good or bad, but I don't think it's a game that you can very easily get through without any help at all. But I also think the game recognizes that, and it's why things like the messages, why the whole like online experience of the game exists, right? Like they understand that you will need help from other people, and they actually build that into the game in some fashion. So it all feels super intentional. I wish I understood exactly what was alluring about that. There's some aspect of feeling like I am, like there's always going to be something around the next corner, and that perpetual mystery of not knowing what it is definitely alluring. And there's also something in the way this game is like withholding about itself and intentionally, like, there's been so many times I've gone through a dungeon and I don't, like, the thing that I get for it is probably not worth the time investment or the effort to take it. And yet I still feel a sense of success at having gotten through it. I'm not sure exactly how they managed to do that, because I can think of so many quests in so many other games where I put in a ton of effort and then get something is like kind of worthless. And then I feel like my time has been wasted. But then in this game, I can spend a lot of time working to get a resource that I don't ultimately need. And I don't feel like my time is wasted. And I think some of that is there is still, and for me, the combat is working for me in the sense that there is a sense of accomplishment that comes from working your way through something that challenging, even when it doesn't feel challenging in the moment. But the fact of the matter is that at any point in this game, nearly any enemy type could kill you with relative ease.
Yeah.
Even at 40 plus hours into the game, even I'm like level 60, there are enemies that, you know, if I encountered more than 2 rats at a time, there's like these big rats in the game. They're like relatively easy enemies. But if I encountered more than 2 of them in just the right sized area at just the right moment, they could kill me. It's that level of danger, so that even when I'm taking out quote unquote easy low level enemies that I might be able to 1 or 2 hit, there's still a feeling of they are dangerous and I'm overcoming it, that I think really contributes to that feeling of just feeling like you're steadily mastering something. But then even when I don't master it, when I cheese it, or when I don't know, there is a feeling of accomplishment that comes from playing this game that I think few games are able to tap into. And it's giving you a sense of accomplishment that is not hinging on the trophy popping in the corner, that's not hinging on the item that you're finding in the chest or the next piece of armor. And I find cool things in this game all the time, and that's very exciting, but that's not what my sense of accomplishment is hinging on. It's hinging on feeling like I've done something by getting through a thing, even if I did it in an unconventional way. You feel like you're kind of figuring it out on your own and finding your own way through it. And I don't know exactly what all the different little design pieces that they've put together to give that feeling is, but I finally understand that that's what people are tapping into with these games.
Yeah, that resonates. There's this, I think, just because of all of this, of the Souls franchise's history and all of the ceremony and circumstance around it, where it is known to be impenetrable, or like filled with lore that's also deeply mysterious and withholding, that really, honestly, engaging with any aspect of it successfully feels like a win. Like, when I learned how to assign items from my inventory to my pouch and understood how they worked and what they did, that was a win. Like, I was like, yes, I've cracked the code. Like, even down to like the items in your inventory, it won't say like, this is a health potion. It will say, this is the chalice of crimson tears, and it was forged when this maiden cried into a cursed lake. Oh, and by the way, it will replenish your HP. And so it's like, every aspect of it, down to the items, down to even in some ways, for me, understanding leveling up and how the stats work together. Like, anytime any piece of that clicks, I feel like I've achieved something. And I think the fact that it does feel like this legendary tome that I'm dusting off and rifling through, which just to look into my inventory and understand my items, like, it adds to this feeling of discovery. Like I think I'm used to, a menu is something I don't even have to think about in a game. Like, it's just, there's a lot of standardized patterns and styles. We all have user experience tenets that we have subconsciously internalized, and a lot of apps will follow the same behavior because that's a rule of intuitive design. Design should be invisible. Dark Souls says, actually, design should be very visible, and and navigating the designs of our UI should feel just as much a part of the uniqueness of this game as anything else. Like, it's inherently its own. And even that is sort of learning the language of the game, just interacting with the menus. And I think I typically would be very frustrated with that. I would be like, well, that's just bad UX. Like, why are you making it unnecessarily challenging for someone just to access the item and access the menu and pick up an item or use an item? But it's like, that's part of the feeling of immersing yourself in the game. Like, you're fully in this world and you're playing by its rules. And to get better and grow, you need to adapt and understand it and be open to learning something completely new. Which I'm starting to see how that's actually kind of cool.
And I think I wanted to circle back. We need to wrap this conversation up and get to our interview. And I'm sure we're going to talk about Elden Ring again in the future. But circling back on that point to the usage of guides and online materials to supplement the understanding of the game, I think the game, because of the way it brings in the online elements and the comments and kind of is so intentionally obtuse, I think it understands that people are going to have conversations outside of the game about the game and help each other understand. And I think so my partner started playing the game about a week after I did too. And there is something so rewarding too about being someone who is just a little bit further ahead in the game, or who has understood an XYZ thing, and being able to help another person through that in some way. And I feel like that's part of it too. Part of the experience is also being able to talk to someone else and help each other figure out how a thing worked. And so, when you were talking about the use of the guides and not wanting to copy someone else's experience, for one thing, I just wanted to clarify that I'm not using guides that are saying like, go here and then go here and then go here and then go here. I'm more like, I open something in my inventory and I'm like, I have no idea what this is or how it's supposed to be used. And I might fiddle with it for a little bit, but then I have no qualms about just Googling like, what does glove work do? And getting a sense of what it does and then trying to piece that together. So That's more like how I'm using walkthrough and guide text. And I think because I don't have an existing community around me in person that is playing the game that we can bounce those ideas off of, I think the internet provides this huge space where you can have those conversations and look to people for answers. And I think the game actually encourages that if you're open to doing it. And for me, at least, it hasn't lessened the experience anyway. There's plenty of things I figured out on my own, and there's plenty of things I've gone to a guide for. And I think that's all kind of fair game as far as this game's concerned, because again, I do really think that it emphasizes this idea of do it in whatever way works for you and is going to be enjoyable. And I know I would much rather, there's just times where I'd rather figure the thing out quickly or like learn from someone else than struggle in my own ignorance. And so I think the game is challenging a lot of notions that I've maybe had about who I am as a gamer too. And like asking me to be okay with the idea that that failure, that dying, that running away, that looking something up, that asking for help, that all of that's really okay. And it doesn't make me less of a person or less of a gamer. And it also doesn't lessen my enjoyment or my sense of accomplishment when I achieve a thing. So I don't know. This game, for us being Pixel Therapy, this game has like been feeling like therapy lately in a really interesting way.
That's fascinating. I love that you say that too, because I was reading, there's an interview with Hidetaka Miyazaki in the New Yorker that came out near the end of February. As Jamie mentioned, he's the creator and basically like creative director of Dark Souls, the Souls series. And he specifically talks about how he loves sparking players' imaginations in the game through its obscurity, through giving items like interesting descriptions. And he loves seeing how players of the game are communicating with each other and creating their own interpretation, sharing techniques. He specifically says like that it's something that he enjoys seeing unfold with their games, and that has continued to influence his work. And so just this idea that you like completely independently came to this conclusion of like, I love this aspect of how the game encourages the community playing it to share with each other, to help support each other, to learn from each other. And that was like by design. Like that is great design, because like it's just part of the experience of the game that naturally occurs. There was a quote that I would love to read from Hidetaka that I thought was really cool, and I think something to think about. I mean, I'm sure many people may have heard this already if you have been reading any news around Elden Ring. But in this same interview with the New Yorker, he says, "When I'm playing these games, I think, this is the way I'd want to die, in a way that is amusing or interesting, or that creates a story that I can share. Death and rebirth, trying and overcoming, we want that cycle to be enjoyable. In life, death is a horrible thing. In play, it can be something else."
Wow. That's very cool. Well, Spencer, I'm excited to continue to chat about our Elden Ring journeys as the weeks go on. But for now, I think we should transition over to our interview.
Let's do it.
All right. Today, we're talking to Rokashi, a video game maker and writer currently working on the official HBO show tie-in game Insecure: The Come Up, and separately developing their own game, Faraway Fairway, for the soon-to-be-released Playdate console. We had such a chill, fun time chatting with Rokashi about everything from Netflix moving into the game market, the raw brilliance of Twine games, bringing mental health conversations into games and gaming, and their take on what they refer to as Sonic's speed culture as an example of paying your success forward and sharing the limelight with the folks that helped you get where you are. Rokashi told us they want to see the mainstream concept of a gamer shift to highlighting the creative, supportive folks who are already here building community around games, and honestly, we couldn't agree more. So without further ado, here's our interview with Rokashi.
Hello to our wonderful guest, and thank you so much for joining us in the virtual Pixel Therapy studio. To start, can you share your name and your pronouns?
So my name is Rokashi, and my pronouns are they, them.
Awesome. And Rokashi, how do you spend your time?
Oh boy. I do so many things, honestly. I guess like to start, most of what I do is working with Globe Games on HBO's Insecure the Come Up game. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like what I do for like my main job sort of deal. And then I do have my own like personal projects, and that's when I work on Faraway Fairway, which is going to be coming out on the Playdate.
Mm-hmm. Can't wait to ask you more about
that. Yeah, I know. And everything other than that is me just watching movies because I just love movies so much. So,
oh my gosh, same. And Rakashi, what's your story around how you came to work in video games?
Oh man, so it's really interesting because I originally went to school for journalism, which is just like, okay,
completely unrelated. Cool.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that was, oh my god, when did I start? I think it was like 2008, 2000 to 2012 is when I graduated, and I was like, a lot of the times, like during like school or even like summer, there'd be a lot of like events because I live in Toronto, and there'd be a lot of events from like Nintendo, Microsoft, and those sort of like kind of like press events. I don't know how the hell I got like invited to those. Like I think I just like showed up, and I was just like, I want to do stuff here. So I would like cover a lot of like those events, and I started covering a lot of like local stuff in Toronto as well. So a lot of like independent creators working on games. And then I was invited to do a game jam, and I did the game jam, even though I was just like, oh, I'm just a writer. What can I do at a game jam?
Yeah.
Little did I know. Yeah, I took part and I made my first game, and people really liked it, and it was like showed up in like novels and stuff as like examples of like narrative design, which is completely wild to me. Like it's still very weird, like a very weird thing.
You're not gonna name drop?
So like my first game was called I'm Fine, and it was originally built in Twine. That's what I made it in, and then later on it got ported to Flash, and then that's when I showcased it at like IndieCade and like GamerX and those sort of like events. And now I work in the games industry, which is like so funny to me.
That's amazing. Like you mentioned, you were a writer showing up at a game jam and had no idea how you'd be able to contribute. I mean, tell us like more if you're comfortable. Like, what did that look like? How did you figure out what you could do, and what did you end up? Tell us more about how you used Twine.
Yeah, it's it's such a funny thing because like whenever I played like games, like like AAA games and stuff like that, I was always the kind of person who's like very interested into the stories that they tell, and I'm just like, oh, that's so cool, but I'm in journalism, so there's no like there's like no connection between the two. But I learned that, in terms of like journalism, like you're still like even reporting is like telling a story in a way. So I've kind of like took that sort of like inspiration of like reporting on, things in the community to talking about games and how games made me feel and stuff like that. And for I'm Fine, it was more of, like I like what I really like is just talking about like mental health.
Yeah. I
created I'm Fine with mental health in mind, and people really liked it, and I was just like, okay, I think I got the hang of this this video game making thing. And that's why I sort of like continued onto it, and yeah, now here I am, still doing it, still making games about mental health, and just like learning new things as I go.
Awesome. Rakashi, you mentioned working with Glow Up Games, working on Insecure, The Come Up, a mobile game based on Issa Rae's HBO show, where players live their lives in LA, cultivate their crew, and nurture their closest friends. What does a sort of day in the life at Glow Up Games look like for you?
A lot of the times, there's a lot happening because like it's still like since it came out in early access, we're adding like a lot of like additional content and stuff that I can't really talk about. But what I can talk about is that like we have like our writers room and we have like like a general idea of where we want the story to go because as you probably already know, like the TV show Insecure is unfortunately over, but the good thing is that with the game that we're creating, with the come up game, it's more of a season 6 starring you. So starring like the player. So we're kind of like crafting, what's already been established in the TV shows and extending it into a playable setting. So like, you have like Issa Rae and you have like Molly and like all those characters. And we're just like extending them and their personalities into the game where people could engage with them, like literally engage with them. Cause like, when you're just watching TV, you're just like, oh, you're just watching things happen. But since it's like more of an interactive setting, you have more choices to make. You could piss her off. You can make her happy, like those sort of things. And it's been really interesting to just like, talk with other writers and like establish like how we want to have the player move forward.
That's really cool. Like, what do you think is like just hearing you talk about that, how it's extending it's almost bringing to life these characters off screen in a way that the player, like the fourth wall separating the player from the world on screen is kind of like taken down a little bit. And now they get to like enter the world of the show. Like, I'm just wondering, like, about your thoughts on what is unique about working on a game that brings an existing fandom, like, to an entirely new platform.
Yeah, that's something I'm like still kind of exploring because this is actually the first like mobile game I've ever worked on. So it's been like a very interesting process. Trying to, put two and two together of like, oh, okay, well, there's certain characters who didn't necessarily get a lot of screen time, and you're just like, you kind of like pick of like their interests and stuff like that, and kind of like piece together like, oh, this is the kind of thing that they would be into, or this is the kind of thing that they would say in this certain situation. And you kind of like move forward with that, and we have like testing and stuff like that as well. But I think it's really fun because even if the show is not on anymore, the characters still live on and they can still, have their own personalities and stuff like that, and people can interact with them. But I don't know, it's just like, it's such a very weird feeling because you never, like, you just expect like these characters to just like disappear.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, no, but they're back. And they're telling you to do things, and you're like, you don't have to do these things, but I don't know, it would be fun if you do it. And it's like, you might as well, right? Because like those characters, like they're there for you, like especially for you, and like anything you choose will have like a reaction of them. So it's been a lot of fun, and honestly, I can't even wait to see like where these characters go next. So
that's awesome. It's fascinating because it's true. Like through watching a show for 5 years, you form relationships with these characters.
Exactly.
You're thinking about them at night before you go to bed. You're wondering what they'd be up to. Now that the show, at least if you're me, you're like wondering, oh, I wonder what they would be doing now, or what their life looks like as my imagination runs away with it. You read fan fiction about them. It's like, having this give and take, this interactivity where, like you said, they're telling you to do things, they're actually responding and being part of your life. It's just like a really cool new dimension to kind of sustain the life of content that, as you said, maybe has ended in one way. In general, just you mentioned this is your first mobile game that you're working on, and I'm just curious, like, I just feels like mobile games are really ushering in a new era of like making gaming more accessible than ever before for a lot of people. I think the Playdate kind of does some of that too, which I'll get to in a minute. But I'm just curious, like, I even saw the other day, I opened my Netflix app on my phone because I wanted to watch like a K-drama in the bath. And I just saw that Netflix has this new section with games. Like,
Oh my god! Oh, I have so many things to say about that. It's like, oh my god! I don't even know where to start because like when someone's like, "Hey, do you want to like go like play Netflix?" and you're just like, "Yeah, like what do you want to watch?" and they're like, "No, I want to play video games." Like what? Like you know what I mean? It's like it's not. It's such a alien thing to me where it's just like I get a lot of companies like want to try a new thing and be like, oh well, we see the number of people playing games and we have a lot of people watching TV, so maybe they'll like translate to a lot of people playing games on our platform. But I don't know, there's still such a disconnect. Like it, because like I read the other day that Netflix is working on a first-person shooter, and I was like, "What do you mean? What does that even mean?"
Right. Like, oh my god!
like, and it's one of those things where it's not. It doesn't. I'm not 100% sure, but it didn't mention it was like a game that's based on any of their TV shows. Like it's something like brand new.
Yeah.
So I was just like, is that just going to be like a game, or is it going to be a game? And then they're already working on a TV show to make it. You know what I mean? Like so, like vice versa. So people will see the game, play it, assuming they want to play a game on Netflix, and then the TV show comes out, and then they're like, "Oh, that makes so much sense."
Right.
But like, I don't know. It's so weird. Like, why? And then they raise the prices. Like I'm like, am I paying for this game?
Right.
Like, I don't know.
We're funding the Netflix indie studio, apparently.
Oh my god. That's such a weird thought. Oh my, like it just hit me like how much of like a weird thing that is. Like it's
yeah.
I don't know.
Like, okay, here's my thing. It's like really right now, it's so relegated to the phone, or I suppose to if they have some way of noticing that you're accessing Netflix from a computer browser. But like I pull up the Netflix app on my smart TV, and so unless they're shipping out red controllers,
oh my god,
then like I don't know how. Like I see this as mainly being tied to mobile to start. But what you're saying that's so interesting too is like I could see, you know, I'm someone who spends 30 minutes just scrolling Netflix and not watching anything because I just can't bear to pick the wrong thing, or I have a very specific itch that needs to be scratched and nothing there is able to scratch it. And so like I could absolutely see myself stumbling into a game, and then, you know, if I really like the game and I end up spending dozens of hours with it, and then a few months later, Netflix is like, oh, by the way, we made a show with the characters of that game in it. I don't know. I could just see.
Yeah.
It's like, and then I'm spending all my time on Netflix. Is Netflix the new Game Pass?
Yeah, seriously. I wouldn't be surprised. But, well, I mean, Game Pass is cheaper. But like, yeah, I do see what you mean. Trying to like make their own sort of like ecosystem.
Yeah.
Because like I get it. If I'm playing a game, because like for example, you could say with the Uncharted movie, like that game was already like Uncharted like 1 through 4 on like PlayStation, and then the movie came out, and people are just like, I might as well just watch the movie. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I think that's I think that's kind of like what they're hoping for, when they have like this game that they just came up with out of nowhere, and then they're like, okay, so we're looking at the stats, like 1 million people played this game, And now we have like this limited series based on that game coming out. And if I see that, I'm like, fine, it's only like 5 episodes, I'll watch it. And that is what they're like, that's what they want, because I'm engaging with something that they created based off another they're just like, they're basically just like hoping that I just spend more time on Netflix based on the various kinds of content that they put out. And it's just like, oh my god, it's so much.
It's funny, like on one hand, I'm like, I'm someone who would never play League of Legends, but seeing something like Arcane on Netflix, beautifully animated, interesting story, very dynamic. I haven't really watched more than the first episode yet, but but the point is that like, that's there. I'm interested in it. It's more in my lane. And now I know a little bit more about League of Legends and perhaps might play it. Like, I'm not going to play it personally, but I could see that someone sort of stumbling in and in no other context would they have ever learned anything about League of Legends or known anything about gaming. But through that, there's a connection. So that is interesting to me. On the other hand, the part of me that's like, so depressed at the way that TV shows now are not even given a chance to breathe, because if the first season does not do incredibly well, then there's no one willing to invest in letting them grow into themselves and like develop into the great shows that they could be. And that's frustrating. Like, yeah, it is. And then to see like with this, it scares me to think that like, the sort of Ouroboros of games into movies, into TV shows, into games, like having these, we already have, like you said, 1 million people playing this game, so we basically have a guaranteed audience for this show. It just scares me to think. It feels like it could further limit creativity and only give us more of the same.
Yeah, it's I don't know what's happening on like that side of like the industry. Like, it's very confusing to me. Instead of having Netflix like have their own sort of like games, like maybe it would be better if they sort of be like a publisher of sorts, and then like get like independent studios or maybe AAA studios and be like, do you want to make a game based off of like TV shows? Like maybe something like that, but like Netflix being like, we're doing our own in-house is very confusing, and I'm very interested in seeing how that goes. But,
I'm breaking out the popcorn.
But for now,
more ways than one.
I don't know. I think I'll stick to just like separating those two for now. So just play games on one service and then Netflix for just TV, please.
I'm a family man. I keep my gaming and my TV content separate.
Like, how dare you think I want both of those together? No. Yeah, it's interesting.
So speaking of like bringing gaming into different platforms, making them more accessible to different types of people, you alluded to already the Playdate, which is a really cool little handheld gaming device from Panic, the same publisher behind Firewatch, Untitled Goose Game, and other like beloved indie titles. The Playdate is like this, it's like a little Game Boy with a black and white 1-bit screen, and it even has this like little crank on the side in lieu of a joystick, which introduces some really interesting new possibilities for game mechanics. And Rakashi, you mentioned that you're working on a game. It's called Faraway Fairway for the Playdate.
Yes.
I'd love it if you could tell us more about Faraway Fairway and what inspired you to make a game for the Playdate.
Well, I guess from the beginning, when I saw the Playdate was like launching, and they're like, we're making this thing. And I'm just like, whoa, I love bright yellow. It's such
it's so happy.
It's such like a pleasant thing to like look at. I was just like, whoa, this is so cool. And eventually I was sent one, and I was just like, I kind of already knew like the kind of game I want to make. Because like I always daydream about like the kinds of games that I would probably make for such an interesting little console.
Yeah.
And I settled on a golf game, which is very very interesting, because if someone was like, hey, Rakashi, do you even know how to play golf? And I'd be like, no, I don't. And like, I don't care to learn. Like, it's not my problem. But the thing is, like, the game is sort of like my own interpretation of whatever golf can be, not exactly what it is. And like, it doesn't have like any rule sets of like birdie or anything like that, or par or anything like that. It's more of a game where, you know, you have like a spare moment, you could just pick it up, play some games, and it's just like set it down. But Faraway Fairway on its own is it's an arcade procedurally generated adventure mental health golf game.
Oh my gosh. I love all of the words you're saying.
Yeah, I know. I'm just gonna stuff everything in there. So essentially what the game is, you play through a set of levels, and there's a lot of like different things happening. So like you play, it's basically a paradise. So you're like a golf ball, and then you travel through the beak of a bird onto an island, and then you move your way through the islands to the hole. And yeah. it's very simple, but there's a lot of things that are happening as you go. Like there's like different weather patterns, times of day, and if you interact with a very special thing, something special will happen.
Love that.
And you'll be greeted to a short story that I've written that it's kind of like in conjunction of whatever that item is and how it relates to mental health, healing, and how it could be interpreted by you, someone else, or someone else like looking in to, you know, a certain like situation. So it's not like too heavy. It's still meant to be like a very chill game.
Yeah.
But I want people to empathize more with like mental health and everything that surrounds it. And I think I found a very interesting balance.
Yeah.
And I'm just like really happy. Like I don't know, like when I first got like it running, I was just like crying. I was like, oh my god, it's real, you know? Like,
yeah, you brought it to life.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I don't know. There's just like something about like designing something and then seeing it in action, and you're just like, whoa, like what the hell? Like something, like things are happening. There's something on the screen that's moving. You know what I mean? It's like, there's like a lot of like positive energy around that, and I love it so much, and I can't wait for everyone to get their Playdate, and then when by the time it's done, I don't even know when it'll be done. It'll be done soon. It's almost done. But like, I just want everyone to play it and just like have a good time. And it's like, it's not even a game that you're supposed to just like you can't speed like. So here's my way of like how I see it. If you're on a trip through, you know, self-healing, mental health, taking care of yourself, you don't want to rush that. And I kind of like make that reflect in the gameplay as well. It's not something you rush through. That's why I was just like, no, there's no timers, no blockers of any sort. Like if you're you know, learning about yourself, you know, like your history, your background, anything about yourself, and while moving forward, you want to take your time, and you would want to take your time on a vacation as well. So I want everyone to just like chill. Like please don't rush through, you know, self-healing or anything like that. And yeah, I kind of like want to make that reflect in the gameplay, and I just want everyone to have a good time.
Healing like golf is not linear.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It just like makes me like really happy. It's just like, I don't know. It's just wild that it's just like a thing, and people are just like, yeah, I'm excited for the play. Like, I don't know, like there's any people like in my mentions, and they're like, I can't wait for Faraway Fairway. I'm like, who are you? I was like, where did you come from? What's going on?
Absolutely.
I don't know, it's just like a really good feeling. It's just like, wow, because like I've like it was a little bit different because with I'm Fine, it was very like, because it was made in Twine, and Twine is HTML, so it could literally play on any browser. But this is like the first time I've like, you know, like designed something for,
made a console exclusive.
Yeah, like who, like how dare I? Like, you know what I mean? Like, like who am I? Like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm just such a different person, like doing all these things with people and like creating, you know, this game, this experience on a brand new console. And I'm just like, whoa. It's just like, it really hits you sometimes. It's just a lot of fun because a lot of people have been supporting me. So
it's amazing.
Yeah, I'm just like really excited.
And what if someone came up to you and was like, why should I play the Playdate? Like, who do you think the Playdate is for, and why should people try it?
Well, I've seen a lot of comments from people online about the Playdate. Because they're like, oh, it's just like an emulator. And it's just like, no. Like, there's a lot of like very, you know, creative, independent, you know, designers, programmers, you know, making games for the Playdate. And yeah, especially like a lot of like marginalized people as well. And I just want to hear and play those kind of stories on like this platform, because they've made it very accessible for people to even make games with Pulp, just sort of like a browser based sort of game engine, and you could just like make, you know, like small pixel art, make your own like little video game, and you could just easily just port it to the Playdate.
That's
and it's
great.
just like
anyone can make a game.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it's very accessible. So I don't know, like, why would you not want a lot, like, more people who are interested in games, or, you know, games adjacent people, you know, creating these kind of experiences that could be very new and unique for this console, and, you know, just put it out there into the world. I think that's so cool. And that's kind of like why I got involved, because I was just like, this is like pretty inspiring. Because really I'm one of those people. Because I was just like, what do I have to offer the Playdate? And clearly a lot. So I just want more people, especially people who, you know, come from like very like diverse backgrounds and have like very unique experiences. And if you could turn that experience into a game where you could educate people and make them learn something new about you, about a certain situation, or any sort of like culture, why would I not support that? Like, that's what I want. That's what I want in games. And I wanted to see people thrive with that sort of like power.
It's interesting too. Like, I'm thinking about, there's this phone that exists, and it's basically like, it almost looks like a Kindle. It's like really flat, and it only has like one button, and it's basically like, you can make calls and you can message, but there's no internet, there's no apps, there's no, I mean, it's basically just like a phone from the 90s, but smaller and flatter, and it looks like a piece of paper. And it's like for people who are just super overconnected and overwhelmed, to just have the function but not worry so much about the constant information overload.
Oh, okay.
And when you're looking at the Playdate, I feel like it could also be interesting for someone who wants to interact with games, but maybe is taking a break from the internet or is doing like a technology detox or just wants to limit their interactions with computers in general. Maybe they are someone who's like logged on all the time for work, and when they're in their off time, they don't want to have to worry about notifications coming in. They don't want to worry about distractions. They just want to do some brain smoothing fun games. So I could see this kind of thing because it is like a physical device, and it's so interactive, like with the buttons and the crank, and because the games themselves, I forgot to mention, something else really cool about the Playdate is it's basically like kind of like a subscription service where like 5 new games are released every so and so weeks or months, and essentially when you're turning on your Playdate, you might have like new games in your library to try, and so it's always fresh, it's always new. And I don't know, I could see it being cool for those types of folks too, who might want to engage with games but feel overwhelmed by the options available right now.
Yeah, it's I like. There's a lot of people who like sort of overlook that part. So if you like, for anyone who's like purchased or pre-ordered Playdate, you get 24 games magically just beamed down to your device. So one day you could just wake up and then you look at your Playdate and it's just like, you got a game, and you're just like, oh.
It's like a Tamagotchi.
Yeah. But you don't have to feed it. But like that sort of like interaction is just like really cool because like, you know, people who are interested in trying like, you know, new things, and just like imagine just like waking up and just like, yeah, there's a game right here ready for you to play, and then you could just like play it, pick it up and play it, or take it with you and like play it on your break. And it's like, I don't know, it's just like really,
it's nostalgic.
Yeah, and it's like it's a really fun way to just like play new games that you never thought you'd play. And there's like so many of them. So, and it's like it's not even just that. A lot of people who are not part of like the season are also like creating their own games, and they might sell them on itch, and then you could just like sideload the games onto your device. So, like it's all very easy. Very easy to use.
It's awesome.
So yeah, there's no excuse for people to not find something, because there's a lot already and it's not even out yet. So it's like very exciting.
Awesome. Rokashi, what advice do you have for someone who's dreaming about making their first game?
Ooh, I think no, not I think. I know a lot of people, especially people who aspire to be, you know, a game developer. They get hooked into, or they just get tangled into the sort of like web of like gatekeeping as to what does it mean to be a game developer, what kind of skills it takes to be a game maker. And I want to tell that person to like, whatever's on the table, just throw everything on the floor and like like just toss it onto the floor. That is just like a way to tell yourself that you're not enough for like to make something, to create something. There's so many accessible like engines out there. I'm like rambling, but like the simplest way I could say it is, even if you make, you know, a 10-second game in Twine, you're a game maker. End of story. It's not complicated. This is not like, you're not, you know, creating, like, you're not doing lines of code, you're not, you know, working in all these like super expensive programs. Like, you don't need Unity, you don't need Game Maker, you don't like Twine. I'll tell you. Let me tell you that people like who made like games in Twine have some of like the best content I've ever seen out of any AAA game. End of story. Like, they're so raw. They have so much like character interaction, replayability, because, you know, anything could happen in a Twine game depending on the choices you make. It's so incredible, and I hate for people to be like, oh, if I can't make a game in Unity or if I can't make a game in Unreal, then I can never be a game maker. And that's such bullshit. I hate it so much. And there are people like online who try to like push that narrative.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, shut up. Like I hate you. Like you're like, how is that like welcoming anyone into an industry where people should be free to be creative and make and tell like fun and interesting stories? Like it pisses me off so much.
No, it's so true.
But yeah, like if anyone out there is like even like curious about games, the things you can do in Twine are pretty incredible, and there's so many resources out there that are also free for making things in Twine. It's actually really funny because like I learned a lot of stuff about Twine by reading tutorials by Anna Anthropy. And I was always like, oh my god, Anna's so cool, and now we're friends. it's like full circle.
We've had her on the show, so yay. We love her too.
Yeah, like all of her stuff is like very helpful, and to just get someone started and make something like very simple. So you can make a game like, oh, I woke up. Should I, make my bed or get breakfast, or should I play video games? And that is like that. What I just said is already like gamification of like narrative. So see, there it is. Like it's very simple to like create, games, and you don't have to have any skills. You don't have to like program. You don't. Just make games. It's possible. It's very possible.
Toiling alone, hunched over a computer for 7 years in the dark is so last decade. Just download Twine.
Exactly. Literally, that's all it takes. It's so good.
So Rakashi, focusing in a bit more on you, what is your personal history with video games?
Everyone knows me as like a big Sonic the Hedgehog fan. I love Sonic. Sonic's so great. He's kind of an asshole, but it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, he was one of my first crushes. I was playing Sonic on the Sega Game Gear, and then I, of course, vehemently remember, was it 2009? Sonic Adventure 1998. 1998. Sonic Adventure on the Sega Dreamcast was my jam. So I'm right there with you, but go on, say more.
Yeah, like I just like that was like the first game I ever. Well, Sonic 2 was the first game I've ever played, and I'm just like, whoa! You're going so fast, and this fox has two tails. What's going on? It was just like such a powerful moment, but like I've really like developed like a love for like platformers. It's just I've always played like platformers and just love like or if it's not platformer, I'll play like a 3D adventure game. I like running around and like discovering things. It's just like a lot of fun. Like nowadays what I've been playing is Spelunky 2. Nice. And I constantly die in that game like all the time. But I just keep playing. It's fine. Don't worry about it. And also what I've been playing is Destiny 2, which is like two very different two very different games. But I play Spelunky because it's cute, it's fun, and it's always different. And I play Destiny because I'm very bad at shooters, but when like the characters start talking about lore, I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but you're really passionate about it, so I guess I'll help you in this quest.
Love that
and like,
for you.
Like that's so that like that's sort of like way of thinking, but it's still very fun, especially when I get to play with others online. yeah, I don't think there's like a certain kind of game that I don't play, unless if it's an MMO. I have to be careful about MMOs, because if I like it too much, like I will disappear from the face of this earth. Yeah, I'll be like, I'll come back in like September, and I'll have like this like huge beard, and I'll be like, I'm finally max level. Like, you know what I mean? I can't have myself getting lost in MMOs.
Yeah.
So I don't really play them, but I'll play literally anything else as long as it's fun. I'll play it.
Yeah. I mentioned, like, you mentioned your love of Sonic and just how fun it is, the discovery. I also noticed, like, I mean, anyone who sees your Twitter will instantly recognize that you are a Sonic fan. Like, what does the character of Sonic mean to you personally, and how do you relate to him?
It's really funny. A lot of people don't even like ask me that, which is really interesting. But I actually did a talk about my own interpretation of like Sonic, and like I call it speed culture, in which it's even like it's even in like the narrative of Sonic the Hedgehog games. But like I equated like speed culture with doing your best and like putting your best foot forward and supporting your friends, sort of thing. And I've kind of had like that whole mentality throughout my life, and like in also now in the games industry. So, and like it kind of like even evolved into, if I see success in the games industry, then I bring other people with me. So I don't leave people behind. Like Sonic, if Sonic doesn't leave people behind, then I don't either. But like, you know, like if I, you know, find myself in a position with someone who's just like, oh, I do this, and I know someone who has supported me is like, oh, I'm looking for something like this, I'd be like, hey, you know, y'all should chat or something. Just like, I just want like kind of like pay it forward and like support everyone, really. So I'm always just being like, you talk to this person, like you talk to this person. Or even if, you know, if I found if people give me like money sometimes, and people, and I know someone who's just like, oh, I've been trying to get this program, but you know, like things are tough right now, I buy them the program with the money that someone else gave me. Like, it's like, and then they start creating with, you know, with that program, and they make something really cool. And then they'll be like, oh, thanks for the support, Rokashi. And then I'll be like, well, thanks for your support. You know what I mean? It's just like that back and forth of like supporting each other. And I think the games industry could do a lot better with that. Because I see a lot of people who are like, I'm in this like really cool spot right now. And it's just like, how'd you get there?
Yeah.
And they're like, like, wow, how'd you get there? Who helped you? And they're just like, I did it. It's all me. I'm like,
right. Okay. Just a single success tweet and none of the context. And so can you. Like,
but it's like there's nothing bad with like if you did it on your own, like sure, that's fine. But like, you know, there are other people who support you, so just like at least give them a shout out or something. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Like, I just find it to be like such an easy thing to do. And I don't know, some people act like they just never want to do that ever. Just like, it's just like, wow, that's not a very, I don't know, it's just like not something I would do.
It's hard to collect all the rings without teammates.
Yeah. And I don't know, I was gonna make a Chaos Emeralds joke. It's like because like sometimes it's like, oh well, you did this all without the Chaos Emeralds. It's just like, oh, lucky you. Like, damn. And we're out here just like looking under rocks for like this chaos emerald, so we have like, the power and the energy to do this.
Mm-hmm.
When you're just like, I don't need your help. It's just like, damn. Shadow or something? Jeez. So yeah, but like in closing, I guess I do want people to just be more appreciative to people who support them and get them into very interesting places and opportunities and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Like someone who's just genuinely excited for your work and genuinely supporting you and is just like over the moon because you make content. Like what feels better than that? Like people, I mean, I think you're talking too about literal support, but just like being thankful for, support that gets you further, as well as like the people who can't even give you any money, but are still clicking on your stuff, watching your stuff, telling other people about your stuff. Like everyone who's involved in lifting you up. They deserve some appreciation and thanks.
Yeah.
So Rakashi, do you consider yourself to be a gamer?
Okay, so if you look at my Twitter, it does say gamer, but that's only because so Twitter has this thing where it's just like, oh, make your account professional. I'm like, what professional is on Twitter? Come on, give me a break. But if you type in game, it's only gamer. There's no like game developer, game anything. It's just gamer. I'm like,
okay.
Oh no, I hate the word gamer sometimes. It's like y'all are not making that word easy for me sometimes, I swear. So I just like I put gamer, but like not like
said with such shame.
I'll say I'm gamer adjacent. I'll say that.
And why? Tell us why.
I don't know, I feel like the way how like the media talks about people who are like gamers as like people who are just like, I don't know, like just people who you don't want to like interact with because they're too online. When, people who I know who are interested in games are very, very friendly, outgoing. They do interesting things. They support people, and like we never really hear that side of like gamer stuff in the news. And we need more of that, or like, because if you like even if you like Google like CNN and gamer, like I bet you nothing good is gonna come up. Like
scared, yeah.
Like you don't want to do like I want to like change that. Like I want, when people think about like gamers, it's just like, oh, communities of people supporting each other, making and creating, funding and granting, like that sort of thing. And we don't get that in media, and we should. Even like a lot of like the Game Awards, they don't really talk about that either, which is really weird. I don't know. Something's up. Something's going on. I think especially for like a platform like that, I think it could do better with, naming more people who aren't at the top already.
Right.
And start talking about people who, are like on the sidelines still putting in like a lot of the work, or maybe even more work than people who are just like up at the top and taking it for granted. I want more of that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Rakashi, how can folks keep up with you and your games?
Everything I do is mostly on Twitter. I know I shitpost a lot. It's fine. But like
come for the updates, stay for the shitposting.
I'm always on Twitter trying to spread positivity when I can, and that's where I post announcements for my game, Faraway Fairway. And I have a bunch of links in my bio of stuff that I do. So, yeah.
Awesome. And your handle is?
What's my name? Rokashi.
Awesome.
To keep it simple.
Rakashi, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Time is up. up for today's session of Pixel Therapy. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope that listening to our thoughts and feelings gave you some thoughts and feelings of your own. If you want more Pixel Therapy, come check us out at patreon.com/pixeltherapypod, where you can snag that monthly bonus episode for just $2 a month, plus get opportunities to get involved with the community and influence the show directly. If you're not up for contributing monetarily, but you enjoyed this episode, you can show your support for free by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts and following us on Twitter and Instagram at Pixel Therapy Pod. That stuff is just as important, and we do appreciate it just as much. Remember that Pixel Therapy is a happy member of the But Why Though podcast network, so you can support us by supporting them and heading over to butwhythoughpodcast.com. That's though with a THO. Take a peek at the inclusive geek community they're building around pop culture news, reviews, and kick-ass podcasts like yours truly. And you can keep up with all of this stuff and more by visiting our website at pixeltherapypod.com.
Finally, since we like to put our money and our energy where our mouth is, we end every episode with a recommended side quest. This week, shout out to Rokashi for the awesome recommendation of letting you all know about the Hand-Eye Society. It's a Toronto not-for-profit dedicated to supporting and showcasing video games made primarily as a form of creative expression. The Hand-Eye Society aims to provide exhibition opportunities, education, creative support, mentorship, knowledge sharing, and inspiration to artists, enthusiasts, and the game curious in Toronto. Founded in 2009, it's one of the first video game arts organizations of its kind in the world. Visit handyesociety.com to learn more about membership, volunteer as a game tester, or donate a console or equipment. Again, that's handyesociety.com.
Thank you for that side quest, Spencer. That is our show for today. So go forth, run a story mission, level up some stats, and don't forget to hug an NPC every now and then. We'll be back soon with some more Pixel Therapy. Bye-bye.